I'm really pleased to be standing to support a piece of legislation that is going to make a tangible difference to people who have made a decision to go to university to further their education. And with that comes costs that they pay, both in the debt that they accrue, but also the sacrifices they make in terms of earnings. And this will go some way to supporting people and encouraging them in that decision. The first change that we're making in this bill is around HECS, or HELP. We're making it fairer for everyone who has a HECS or HELP debt. Some people still call it HECS. We know it's also HELP. And we're wiping around $3 billion off that debt, and that's for about 3 million Australians. So someone with an average HECS debt of $26,500, this means that their debt will be cut by about $1,200. And I know students or people who are former students, because you carry your HECS debt with you for some time, have told me how pleased they are to see that move. The second step is that we are, for the first time, introducing a Commonwealth payment to support students doing their prac. Now, the start of this is going to be for teaching students, nursing students, midwifery students and social work students when they have to do their mandatory placements. And this Commonwealth prac payment will ease the burden on them. Now, no one's suggesting it's an absolute quick fix, but we know many students have to give up their normal paid work to do their full-time placements, not just for 1 week, we're talking about for multiple weeks at a time. And this is one way to alleviate that burden and help them get through what in itself is a challenging thing, to take that learning you've done and put it into practice without having to worry as much about the financial impost and the loss that you have. For a lot of people, these prac placements are so challenging that they actually choose to delay their degrees and not complete it, or take much longer to do it. And we need the jobs that they're doing. We need teachers, we need nurses, midwives and social workers. And so that's the group we're starting with. But I really look forward to the success of it, Deputy Speaker, so that we can have more of it to come. The third thing that's in here that is going to change people's lives is the fee-free uni-ready courses. And I spoke to a young woman called Amy who's doing one of these, and she says that the ability to access this course is the difference between her choosing to take a risk on furthering her education or just saying, no, it's too scary. Let me tell you what other students have told me about the changes. Natalie, a Hawkesbury local and teaching student at Western Sydney University, said, this will be incredibly helpful for me, my levels of stress and my bank account. So it's a win all round for her. Rebecca, who is also studying teaching, said that as a young person she was praised for taking up a profession that was so desperately needed, yet she was thanked with a debt and full-time work with no pay. And she says, I no longer have to fear this under a Labor government, and I'm receiving the support that all education students deserve. And a nurse, Abby from Falconbridge, is so glad to see the introduction of the paid prac for students. She said she was lucky to be living with her parents at the time, but she knew many people who had to do their prac and then do their own paid work. These are good changes. It's been a long time between drinks, as they say. And when I first started speaking on this bill on the 12th of September, I had the opportunity to highlight some of the key parts of the original bill, and I'm delighted to be supporting the original bill, and rather than the amendments that you've just listed there. This bill is going to do a number of things. Let's just take ourselves back there. It's going to make sure the first change is around HECS or HELP debt, making it fairer for students, and in fact wiping out $3 billion of student debt. And that means that last year's horrible debt that students incurred will actually, because of the backdating, be refunded to them, rebated to them. and it will cut, if someone's got a debt of around $26,500, debt will be cut by about $1,200. So it'll actually make a real difference there. The second thing that I mentioned was the Commonwealth payment to support students doing their prac. I'm going to come back and say a few more things about that, but that is such a significant change, and I'm really pleased that we're looking at how hard it is to do your university and have jobs and then go and do full-time placements. And the third thing is around fee-free uni-ready courses. Now, these can change people's lives, and I gave an example of one local resident who said she wouldn't have even considered doing it if it had meant taking on debt, but she's really relishing it, and there's a high possibility that it's going to lead her into a further university education. But I want to talk a bit more about the prac payments. I'm going to give a really personal example here, because it matters to everyone at uni who is doing teaching or nursing or studying to be a social worker. It also matters to the old people in their families, their parents. And I'm one of those mums who has a son currently studying primary school teaching. And Harry said I'm allowed to tell you about him. He has had a pretty incredible career as a musician from quite a young age, and that led him to do only a year of uni straight out of school. And then he abandoned his university music degree studies to actually play music around the world. But during COVID, things changed, and having done that for many, many years, he came to a decision that it was time to go back to university and do a primary school teaching degree, a profession that he hopes is going to sit alongside his continuing music career. Now, anyone who's gone to uni as a mature-age student, having lived independently, and in Harry's case for more than a decade, knows that the decision to go to uni means not only a drop in your income on a weekly basis and the accumulation of significant debt, but also a total absence of income when you do your full-time prac. And that's certainly what Harry has experienced, weeks at a time. And he sees his friends experiencing it as well. And Harry makes the point that, while I know he hates asking for help, he knows he has access to assistance to get him through those weeks, but he also knows that some of his mates don't, and just how hard it is for them. And so to have a bill that establishes the Commonwealth prac payment to support those eligible nursing, midwifery, teaching and social work students who are doing those required placements is a real game changer. It's an equaliser. And like a lot of things Labor does, it just makes the whole thing a bit fairer. Placements, we know, are a really important part of qualifications, and they make sure those graduates have the skills and experience to actually be in the workforce and to test that they're happy being in that workforce. So, I recognise that there are other qualifications aside from the ones that we've started with that do require mandatory placements, and this is based on where we've started is based on the universities' accord recommendations that we focus on nursing, the care and teaching professions. So that's the advice that we're taking. And they are all areas where we know we need people to be finishing their teaching degrees, finishing their nursing degrees, their social work degrees, midwifery degrees. It is the first time any Commonwealth has provided financial support for mandatory placements. So it's a really significant step. And I look forward to seeing how it supports young people. It won't be everything. It won't suddenly provide them the equivalent of a salary, but it is a help, a tax-funded help to allow them to continue the work that they've made a commitment to through their degrees. And providing a help for students is also what we're doing with the changes to the way help debt is indexed. When we talk about $3 billion being wiped off student debt, it's a really big number. I'm very aware that for each student or person who is still carrying a help debt, it might not translate to, wiping out your whole debt. But it is, again, something we can do that practically assists people, certainly with the current cost of living pressures that they're facing, but also lessens that load and recognises the importance of having people finish their uni degrees. And so I'm really pleased that I wanted to talk through how this was going to work. So we talk about indexation, and I know a lot of people talk to me about the interest rate they pay on their debt, but we all know that it's indexed. It's indexed each year so that it matches relative to what it started out. Otherwise, you'd have a really unequal system. The person who took longest to pay it off would actually end up not paying equivalent of what they were actually effectively loaned by the taxpayer. So indexation just keeps it to the right level, but we know it got out of whack and there's not been any real limits on it. So this bill caps the help indexation rate to the lower of either the consumer price index or the wage price index. So it will take whichever one is the lower, and the backdating will go back to the 1st of June 2023. So once this legislation passes this parliament, individuals will actually get a credit to their outstanding student loan debt balance for the difference between what the indexation rate was under the current legislation and the new indexation rate. These changes are going to apply to help debt, but also to VET student loans and Australian apprenticeship support loans and other student loan accounts that existed on the 1st of June last year. It'll benefit all Australians with a student loan and fix the issues that last year's spike in the CPI indexation rate, which was 7.1%, and prevent growth in debt from outpacing wages in the future. So it's putting that fairness back into the system. So I'm really pleased to be supporting that, and I congratulate the Minister for Education for recognising the need for it and prioritising that. I spoke in the first part of my speech about the fee-free uni-ready courses. I just want to stress how important they are to give people an opportunity to have a taste of what a university environment is like, but what their capacity is to do it as well, and to do it in a way that prepares them for what's coming. They are real game changers, and I'm so pleased to see that we're improving the quality and consistency of fee-free uni-ready courses. Some people might know them as enabling courses. And we're uncapping those courses and replacing the current mixed funding system. And so all of that means more easily available to people. The changes are expected to increase the number of people doing these courses by about 40%. And by the end of the decade, it should that's by the end of the decade, but by 2040, it will double the number of people doing those courses. So this is how we get our young people finding their feet into that world of tertiary education. The last thing, Deputy Speaker, that I want to touch on is the bill that sits alongside this one, but in fact has now just passed this parliament, which is also really key in our universities accord changes that we're making, and that's around the legislation that's just been passed to establish an independent national student ombudsman. These two bills sit really closely together because improving the student experience at university for young and older people is just so important. The National Student Survey of 2021 showed that 21 in 20 students had been sexually assaulted since they started university, and we needed a better system for our university students who pay a lot for their qualifications, who sacrifice a lot for their qualifications, and they deserve a safe place, and if something goes wrong, they deserve an ombudsman that they can go to, who can help with the response to the complaint, have stronger investigative powers. So I think that this parliament has done some really good work. in progressing these changes so that we can encourage more people who become nurses and teachers and social workers and all the other professions that we need to get into the education system.
I thank the member for Macquarie.